Is digital currency replacing the US dollar? And if it does that mean we're moving into the end of days where everything is digitized? And could a transition into complete digital currency be a launching pad for the infamous mark of the beast? At any moment, the crypto monster Bitcoin is about to undergo a routine procedure called the halving. And historically, this event has caused Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies to skyrocket. As inflation rises, more people are turning to digital currency for security. Is this the final marker for the end of fiat currency as we know it? And what does all of this have to do with the election cycle and deciding who the next president will be? Is the hype surrounding digital currency real, or is this all just a joke? An empire built on sand, ready to wash away at the first sign of a flood. What would the ripple effect be? In this episode of The Mysterious Truth, we're going to attempt to answer these questions and shine some light on this cryptic subject and hopefully separate hysteria from reality. If you've never heard of digital currency, it's as simple as the name suggests. It's currency that's not connected to any sort of tangible source. And we're seeing this move away from tangibility behind our money. The US dollar used to be connected to the gold standard. It's no longer connected. Now, a lot of people are moving from the US dollar, the security of it being connected to the United States government, and they're moving away to decentralized currencies, which rely almost completely on the faith and the trust of the people that are investing in them. So what is the halving? So you've probably heard of Bitcoin. It's one of millions of cryptocurrencies that exist today, but you may have never heard of the halving, and no, that's not the name of a horror film. It's actually the name of a routine procedure that occurs once every 4 years. Crypto is actually generated by what they call a mining process. So computer software will attempt to solve these complex mathematical equations, and eventually they are rewarded with a Bitcoin or another form of crypto. This is a super simple way of explaining it, but hopefully you get the point. So every 4 years, the rewards that they get back for solving these problems are cut in half. That's called the halving. And what happens is you're rewarded less for actually undergoing the mining process, but at the same time, it also makes the cryptocurrency more rare, and the potential is for it to be more valuable. Historically speaking, the halving has drastically increased the value of the crypto market, with Bitcoin leading the way. So why does this matter? Well, as we see the rise of inflation and the economy weakening in many ways, people are looking for a place to put their money, and they're looking for security. And the trend so far has been that people are attempting to find that security within cryptocurrency. Now, does this mean that we're eventually going to move into a digital universe altogether? And is that completely a bad thing, or could it be partially a good thing? Consider what happened back in 2020 with the pandemic. So a lot of events were canceled and moved online, and people just had to deal with the fact that they couldn't have their ice cream in person anymore. They had to have a digitized version. And no, it doesn't taste as good. One specific example is the Burning Man Festival. It was hosted as a digital event on multiple online platforms, and people attempted to enjoy the same experience just in a digitized version. And because of events like this taking place online real estate has actually become a thing. So you can buy, trade, sell, and even rent or lease real estate and land online. And this is just one evidence of a huge shift in our culture and in our society today. You're probably too young to remember this, but at a time, refrigerators had been invented, and yet they were still a luxury. Many people still had ice boxes. And yet now, refrigerators in first world countries are considered a priority and an essential. I remember back in the 90s, cell phones were a luxury. Most people didn't have them. And many people that had them for their work usage only. But nowadays, because of the advancements of technology and how available it is, you could find a billionaire who owns his own technology empire using the same exact phone as a high school student who has no money in the bank and only enough gas in the tank to get him to school. So the trend we're seeing is that certain technologies move from being a luxury to being a need, and eventually even a requirement. There's certain things that I can't do unless I download the app in order to do them. And this is where some people think that cryptocurrency could become the gateway to the mark of the beast. And although I agree there is some potential for that, and it could be a conditioning that's helping to set us up for an eventual mark, I also believe, based on Revelation 13, that it's not the mark yet, and that the mark is not something that can actually exist today. Why? Because if you believe that the Bible is true, there's a requirement in Revelation 13 that says that the beast must first arise and must make war against the saints. And then after that, the mark is set in place in order to restrict buying and selling. Three requirements for the mark of the beast from Revelation 13. Number one, it cannot be removed. Okay. Number two, it must be a form of worship. So people are not going to accidentally mark themselves. They're going to understand, in making this decision, I'm making a conscious effort to worship the beast, right? And the third one is it has to be enforceable. So it has to be something that there's no option if you don't have it. And yes, even though cryptocurrency does have the potential to eventually get to that point, especially if all other means of currency are removed out of the picture, it's not there yet. So if you're new to this channel, yes, I'm a Christian and I believe that the Bible is true, but do I believe it's wrong to use cryptocurrency? No. And finally, could cryptocurrency and even Bitcoin itself potentially affect the election this year and actually be the deciding factor that determines whether Biden or Trump is sitting in office in 2025? Forbes.com released an article at the beginning of this year titled, "Why Crypto Could Swing the 2024 Election." There's a couple points they make here that I believe are critical to understanding how crypto could impact the election. The first one is that the last election was decided by key swing states being pushed slightly to one side. So if those swing states were pushed the opposite direction only to a slight degree, it could completely change the outcome. A group called Morning Consult conducted a poll among voters in 4 key swing states, and this is what they found. 55% of those voters said they were less likely to vote for candidates that stand in the way of crypto values. That means 55% of those polled are considering what the candidate believes about cryptocurrency when they cast their vote. And the cryptocurrency holders that they polled were split fairly evenly between Republicans, Democrats, and independents. And here's the thing, both of the major candidates, Joe Biden and Donald Trump, have mostly stayed away from the issue of cryptocurrency. Now, Joe Biden has come out against it more than Trump has. He's attacked the idea of cryptocurrency slightly in a few different ways, but even Donald Trump hasn't spoken positively about it. So what both candidates believe and say about cryptocurrency could make a big impact on the election. So the halving process is taking place any day now, or maybe it's already taken place by the time this video comes out. But the halving happens every 4 years, and the presidential election happens every 4 years, and they just happen to fall on the same years. Is that a coincidence? Or is it a purposeful attempt to direct the election outcome? If there are organizations or people or governments behind a push toward a one world government or toward a one world currency, this could be one piece to that puzzle. So I hope y'all enjoyed this content. Please subscribe if you want to see more like this. But I want to leave you with one final closing thought. Jesus says in scripture, he says, give to Caesar what is Caesar's and give to God what is God's. So Jesus did not shy away from interacting with money and even interacting with the government when necessary, and even going along to an extent with the systems that were set in place. But he also makes a point. He's essentially asking the question, are you valuing your earthly assets and what you could attain here more than your heavenly assets and what God has in store for you and for your life? What do we see happen when Peter has to pay the tax, right? And they don't have the money. Jesus says, hey, Peter, just go fishing. Peter goes fishing. He opens the fish's mouth and he finds a coin that equals the amount of the tax in the mouth of the fish. And God was trying to make this point that, hey, if you need something, if you're on the path that I have for you, I'm going to provide that for you, but you don't have to seek these things the same way the world seeks after these things. So if Bitcoin or cryptocurrency actually ends up being one of the factors that determines the outcome of the election, it's really no different in a lot of ways than what's already taken place, because it's just another sign that people are casting their vote based on which candidate is going to promise them the most financial gain. Now, is it okay to consider money and the effects on the economy and the effects on individuals when casting a vote or making decisions, how you're going to interact with politics? Absolutely. But I believe according to the Word of God, it shouldn't be the most important thing, and actually it should fall pretty low on the list. And the reason is because the thing that should be at the top of that list is, God, what do you want me to do? And what does your word already say? Jesus says in Matthew 6:33, but seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you. I believe as Christians, whether you live in the United States and you're going to be casting a vote this year, or whether you live in another nation and you're voting this year or not, I believe that we all need to ask ourselves this question today. Am I on track with what God is asking me to do with the resources that he's given me, whether that be time or money or anything else? And when we choose to prioritize the things that God prioritizes, God helps the needs that we have to be met, and he helps the things that are most important to work out. So I hope this has been encouraging, and I hope it's been informational. I'll see y'all next time.